Today I'm joined by actress Kara Tointon, star of stage and screen. Kara, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's so good to have you here because the Online Theatre School is a place for people to come and visit to learn about people that have worked in the industry, and you've had such an amazing career. I mean, you've gone from being from dancing as a young age to working in soap to being on stage as in a lead role in a West End show. You've been on film. I mean,
You make it sound so much better than the reality. No, for me, it was a real accident. Weirdly, going into this world of acting as a career, I think as a kid, it was purely a sort of a way of building my confidence, and my parents saw it as a way of enabling me to go into a room and talk to people, so that if I had to go for a job interview, which they assumed I would, I'd be able to at least sort of blag my way through it, and if I didn't necessarily have very good exam results.
so were you quite shy?
I think I have this sort of weird blurred vision of myself that I think I was very shy, but I think there was a double, I was a bit Jekyll and Hyde, that at home I came out of myself and I was the performer, and we'd do, little shows, my sister and I, Hannah, and as you know, we're both actresses, and so we both had a lot of fun at home, but I think out in the real world we were quite quiet and nervous until doing speech and drama lessons and festivals and Lambda exams, I guess, just gave us that little push to give us a little more confidence.
So how far back do you remember being sort of getting started?
I think so. Around 7, I was diagnosed with dyslexia, and I remember as a family we sat around the table and we thought of hobbies that I could do. So actually I ended up choosing gymnastics, and that was a really good thing, because although once again I was never going to be a gymnast at the Olympics, but it definitely gave me a sense of discipline.
Not too late.
Not too late, I could get back then. I think I'd had a dream that I would be, and then you needed to literally flip yourself backwards off things, and I just didn't have the guts. But what it did give was this discipline and working as a team, because you sort of have a group at the gym club, and I used to do my poems in front of my group, and it was a way of just performing, I guess. And my favorite thing was the dance routine on the floor. So I guess that sort of then brought about the doing more dancing and tap and jazz, and the outside hobbies that you do growing up. And I've forgotten what the question was.
Well, no, I mean, do you know what's really interesting? Because people, when I've been speaking to people about different people on the Online Theatre School, there is so many different routes in. So some people, started off by accident. Some people fell into it. Some people started off by dancing and then became an actor, or modeling and then became an actor, or was in a completely different industry. And so it's actually quite fascinating, because you yourself have, as I said before, have been on television in a soap, but also, went on to win Strictly Come Dancing, but then was also in the theatre. So they're 3 very different parts of a career. So I suppose that sort of gymnasts and all that sort of stuff led
Eclectic
led to your success. Okay, yeah. So if someone was watching this now, sort of, what would your... Sorry, it's a bit hot where I am. I think it's...
I'm so sorry.
I'm sort of talking.
You want a little fan?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe I'll just
virtual fanning. I can't.
Maybe I'm just intimidated by... No. So yeah.
Stars in front of you.
So tell me about if you used to talk to somebody now and they said to you, Kara, I just really want to be an actor. I just really want this. What advice would you give? What tips would you give them to get into the industry?
Well, I think funnily just to see what path they want to sort of go down. Well, I think interestingly, whoever you talk to, they'll always give advice based on what they didn't do. So anything that you've learned that you should have done in hindsight is such a brilliant thing. And so obviously, you can't regret the way you got into something, because that's life, and you learn from mistakes and you get better. And I think actually for me, you know, the rejection as a kid, you know, going for auditions and not getting them. I think it just makes you better in the end if you use it in the right way. But I've gone off on one again. But I think my advice would be, at school, I did about sort of 12, 15 adverts through my teenage years. And I always envisaged that I'd go to drama school. And then I got, I guess, my first big job at the age of 16, which was in the comedy show Teachers on Channel 4.
Okay.
And I remember looking at the three main actors. Andrew Lincoln was one of them. And, you know, they were so wonderful with their sort of the younger actors, and we all got on so well. And I asked them, you know, I would ask them advice. And I said, do you think I should go to drama school? And the two main actors that had been said, nah, if you're working and you've got an agent, you learn on the job, and really you've got what you would go to drama school to get. And then the people who hadn't been said, no, go, because it's always something that will hold you in good stead, and it's just something you've done, and then you know, no one can sort of knock you for anything because you've always got that sort of badge of approval. So I went away, and I planned on auditioning for drama school at 18, but you know that they don't always like to take you on too early. They want you to see life. And so I went to art college for a couple of years, and then I kept working and having to stop my art college course. And I thought, oh, the thought of stopping now and going to do 3 years of studying, I was working and learning so much, so that wasn't the road for me. So I just kept on going and decided to take it seriously as a career. But in hindsight, I would absolutely have gone, because I loved all the Lambda exams and the things I did growing up that were kind of a small version of drama school. But I just think you would develop and learn so much that then you could play around and have fun without the pressure of it being on film and sort of being there forever. I guess learning behind closed doors in a safe environment will actually progress you further in the end. And I think I wish I'd gone to drama school. So I would recommend. So
you can be successful without going to drama school, but there's that sort of safety net of practice and rehearsal that you wouldn't necessarily get if you go straight into the industry, that you might get in a drama school. That's really nice advice. And you touched upon something there that, as a lot of the other interviews that I've done have mentioned, which is the element of rejection and knockback. And I was talking to one actor, and they were saying that the rejection part of it actually was part and parcel of the process and part of the job. And then another person I spoke to said they still find it incredibly difficult to this day. So what would you say to an actor who's starting out or experienced, to be honest, and how they deal with that element of rejection, and what it's been like for you?
Yeah, I think nothing can prepare you as much as someone can say, don't let it bother you, you know, just brush yourself off and get on with it. It's always going to be difficult those first few times, but like anything, once it happens 21 times or whatever, it just you can't get upset every time, because you start to realize that sometimes it will go your way and sometimes it won't, for many different reasons. One, because you don't look like the other family that they've cast, or you know, you can't take it personally. Suddenly you realize there's reasons for it not always going your way, and sometimes it's just because you weren't good enough, and that's something you have to take on board. And I think actually that's another interesting thing about going to drama school, is that I don't feel that I really developed my, I guess, skills as an actress until I started to do a lot of theatre. Right. And I believe that going to drama school would have, I think it's all about voice control, whether you're on film or theatre. It's about breath, having enough of it, and just being confident with the use of voice. And that's something that early on I struggled with until I did a lot of theatre. And then going back to filming, although it's very contained and small on screen, that breath control is really important. And I know I've gone off on one there, but it just ties.
No, you haven't. It's all great stuff, and anyone watching will
really long answers,
because I'd never thought of it that way. Because obviously there is a difference between film acting and theatre acting, but if you learn in the theatre some of those elements of breath control, when you come to the stage, you go as a film, you can sort of almost bring it down a little bit, but it's still that knowledge and understanding of how to prepare for a character.
Yeah, and I think theatre is, they always say, oh, you know, I just believe theatre is such a good starting ground, even though it's so different. I think to start with theatre, and then it's definitely a nice way around of doing it. But of course, nowadays you get theatre actors or actors, whatever, and film. So it can be very separate, but I kind of love the thought of doing a bit of both.
Yeah. And did you find when you were on theatre, when you moved, because you went the other way around, when you went from TV to theatre, was it a bit of a shock to you? Did it hit you quite hard? Because you have to maintain a performance every night, and it has to be the same level every night. Did you find
I weirdly, I think as a youngster, dreaming of maybe being an actress, I actually think I dreamed of theatre, but you kind of get put in a bracket. And weirdly, I joined the Sylvia Young agency, never went to the school, but just the agency at the age of 11, 12. And I was always sent for filming jobs, adverts, and never theatre. And you do kind of tend to get put in a bit of a box, and that was it. Until later on, when actually I did Strictly Come Dancing, and then weirdly I was able to do the thing I'd always dreamed of doing. But that door was kind of closed to me until that point. And then it was going into theatre, I realised that that's actually what I was really good at. I was, when I used to do my speech and drama festivals exams, that's what I was doing, and that's what I loved. Yeah. And so it suited me, and that's what I wish I'd done more of earlier on.
Yeah. And what sort of, you know, being an actor is a job that you're unlike most jobs, it's something you're really putting yourself out there. You know, you're asking everyone to judge you. You know, there's theatre critics, film critics, you know, even the audience, they're sitting there the whole time, and obviously they get swept away with the story, but you are putting yourself, you know, any other job, you sort of get away with, you know, hiding behind closed doors doing your work. Whereas acting is very much saying, I am an actor, I am showing you my talent, you know, here it is. So what do you find as an actor the challenges are around being an actor? What?
I think it's the scales of life, that what comes, there's so many good things about going into this industry. I mean, when it's good, it's really good, it's fun, and you can't, you know, wish for a better job. But the downside is that, yeah, you're putting yourself out there, and if something doesn't, especially filming, if something doesn't film or go the way you planned, and you're not happy with it, it's then there for forever. And that can be, you are putting yourself out there, and you're often relying on other people, and it's not just about you, it's about the people around you and everything going on. And there's no easy way of saying it, but just to let things go. In the end, you can get, I think that's been a bit of a lesson, that I dwell a lot and I don't move on to the next. It really doesn't matter in the end. In fact, you're the only person that really cares. You know, no, and when I say that, I mean in the nicest way. There's so much out there nowadays that it's really, of course you have to be proud of what you've done, and you need to do your best, but ultimately you always will do your best. And if it doesn't go well this time, it will next time. And the old Frozen song, Let It Go, has become my kind of mantra.
Would you like to sing that now?
Yes, please.
I
haven't done my scales.
By the way, on singing, I mean that let's just touch upon that, the thing you did for ITV, the Maria, the Sound of Music Live. I mean, I was watching, I was waiting for something to go wrong. I mean, what was that like to film?
You texting me all the way through it. It was weird because I didn't really know what we were doing. I knew we were doing the Sound of Music.
I hope so. Start singing Oklahoma.
But they'd done an American version, but we weren't doing that. Was in front of an audience, but this was being filmed as a drama, on a closed set, and we were running from set to set, and it was all very manic and crazy, but it sort of exhilarated.
It was all live, wasn't it? It was
all completely live, and something I look back on, and I'm so proud of it, because it was just a ridiculous thing to attempt. And once again, I'd love to, when you're doing theatre, you rehearse and you rehearse and you rehearse, and then you get to do the first night and you think, okay, well, we got out there and we did it, but now we're going to make it really good. And what was strange about that job is that we were rehearsing as if it was a piece of theatre, and then we did it once, and you just wanted to go out and do it again and make it perfect. But we knew we only had that one shot. Yeah. And so you had to let go and just know that it wasn't going to go perfectly well.
And also like big shoes to fill. Like you're playing Maria in Sound of Music, and watched by millions of people. Julie Andrews must have been. How did you mentally prepare for that role? What did you watch?
Well, I think,
watch the film? What did you do?
Well, it's one of my favorite films of all time, and as a kid I just watched it on loop, really. And so when the audition came in, at first you think, why are they doing that? That's just stupid. It's so, like, people can just watch the film when they want now, and it's never gonna be better than that, so why? And I was a bit angry. But then you're an actress and it's a job, and actually you love it and you selfishly really want to do it. But I'm not actually a singer. I mean, I can sing and I love singing, but I've never been a musical theatre singer. I mean, I've got a voice, but I never.
Oh yeah, you'd never have guessed that. I mean, watching that show, you sang brilliantly.
Well, I've been singing for. I mean, I think actually I can say what was good about that is that they weren't looking for it to be a musical theatre stage show because it was intimate and small. You could sing in a slightly different way. But what fascinated me was that I never believed you could push your voice in a kind of I always thought that your range in voice was your range in voice, and I knew you could push it slightly, but honestly, I know you've got the bagpipes on you. Your ranges,
I mean,
out there. But I couldn't believe how much my voice changed through that whole process, and I could sing the songs, but by the end I could have sung them in lots of different ranges. It was just incredible to see that my voice expanded so much. What was the question? It was.
No, the question, you sort of answered it, but in a way, sort of, it links to the thing we were talking about earlier, about sort of everyone watching you and judging you. How did you mentally prepare for playing such a role? I mean, you said it was your favorite film. Did you have a voice coach? What did you do?
So while I was waiting for the I went for the audition. I didn't think it went very well, and I was auditioning for another part of the time in a period drama that I really wanted. So as usual, I got the one I didn't want, which is The Sound of Music live. I mean, I don't get me wrong, it was an opportunity of a lifetime, but I was just scared because I knew that people would think, well, it's not you're never going to be Julie Andrews. But then I just got my head around it and I thought, look, you've been offered it. Wow. It's a shock. You either say no because you're scared of all the negative things that will come with it, and you watch someone else doing it, which won't be very fun. So in the end, I didn't have a choice but to just give it a go. And then once I decided to do it, I've never been so immersed in a kind of training, just singing 6 hours a day. It just didn't stop because I knew that the 22nd of December when we did it was this sort of ticking time bomb there in 2 months time.
Once you can't go back. Live.
What's lovely about that is that I think in life, if you've got something to work towards, you put all in. And very much in this industry, most of the time you're thinking, well, yeah, I might get a part, I might not. So but really being ready is always the way to go. But I got an opportunity to be ready for something, and I just loved it, and I was just nervous. I felt sick every day, but then I just got used to that feeling, and I kind of just used it. You always think, well, if you don't do it, you'll be really upset with yourself, so just go with it and and do your best.
So, Kara, you've played a barmaid on a soap opera. You've played the lead role in Pygmalion as Eliza Doolittle. You have been in Mr. Selfridge. I mean, all these roles are very different in nature. How do you, as an actress, prepare for those roles? What do you do?
Well, you tend to, I mean, some actors tend to like playing one role and they are so good at doing that and they go with it. I actually love playing characters. So I love playing different voices, different accents, and mixing it up every time. In fact, if I've done one thing where it's, you know, after doing EastEnders for 4 years, I just wanted to do something completely different. Actually, I didn't work again for a couple of years. So I played lots of roles in my living room. I played Mother Teresa one day and Oliver the next.
Nice.
Really. But when it comes to preparing for a role, it's all about doing research of the time in which you're playing. So if it's a period, it's great because you get to know so much about the history of that time. And all of a sudden I could go mastermind of the 1970s or whatever. And that's actually a part I really enjoy about it, because when you're doing play, I didn't know about this until I did my first play, but you actually sit down for a week, at least sometimes, around the table with your other co-stars and the director, and you actually just talk through the play and the timing and the backstory of each character. And that's actually my favorite part of the whole job, is just sitting there discussing why did they do that, and all in the 1970s, that's because things were different then. And it just brings it off the page, so that then when you put it on its feet, you've done all the work and it just comes to life. But anyway, I'm digressing. I prepare by, I actually have Deborah Groves, someone that I work with over the last few years, that's made things so much easier. I wish I'd done it before. And we do just that. So if it's a filming job, we sit around the table, because I find it hard. I'm dyslexic, so I find it hard to write and read. I need to bring things to life. And she just asked me questions about the character. And then I form this backstory, and it just, it makes everything easier when you get to the filming set and have to record. It's sometimes difficult because with filming jobs, sometimes you have a backstory and then their backstory they haven't necessarily told you, and then suddenly they've cast someone and your backstory is completely messed up.
Prepared this backstory.
So you go along and you're totally prepared, and then you think, oh, well, that's, you know, so
that's not your backstory.
Yeah, but you have to, you know, be able to sort of quickly redirect yourself.
So on dyslexia, Kara, I watched that fantastic documentary, by the way. And I actually, when I was teaching full time, I used to show that documentary to students, because that was such an eye opener to dyslexia and the struggles that people go through. And I found it really emotional, and you were brilliant in it. How do you, what would you recommend to an actor who is dyslexic, or struggles with literacy or any of those sort of diagnoses? What would you advise they do, and that they approach the, script or an audition or anything like that?
Well, it's something I'm really obviously passionate about, because I am dyslexic, and it's something I've struggled with, but not in a, I hate it being spoken about as a kind of hindrance, because actually I was I'm very lucky, because I was diagnosed at 7, and so I've always had the support and help, and I've found skills and techniques to help me in those struggles. But I would say it's absolutely not a hindrance. It's right. Sort of people who have any sort of anything that holds them back, you actually have to think harder to find a way to make it work, and that can often, with acting, that can help you think outside the box and helps you sort of step in other people's shoes, because you're always so confused as to why everyone in the class is finding this easy and you're not getting it. Yeah. So actually I think it's been a massive sort of good, what word am I looking for? See, this is part of dyslexia. It's been a massive
well, rather than see it as a hindrance,
gift.
Yeah, gift. You saw it as
a gift.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that sounds a bit hard, but it's kind of, you have to look at anything that is a kind of problem and turn it into a positive.
Okay.
And that's what I've always done with my dyslexia. And most dyslexics have something, they're normally quite visual and creative, and they just do things in a different way, but that can often be really interesting. So since doing the documentary, I'm sort of, that was over 10 years ago now I did
Was it
that.
really?
So I kind of would love to do a follow-up, in sort of looking at what I've learned from doing that 10 years ago, and what it taught me, and what I see things as now. And I really do kind of want to look at dyslexia as a neuro, sort of as a brain way of thinking. It's not a hindrance. We all have dyspraxia, dyslexia. I think we all have elements of these things, and we just don't realize it.
Right. No, I really like that line, that rather than using it as rather than see it as a hindrance, use it as something, as a positive, as a gift, because that changes the whole concept of it. So I may not be able to read this script, but what I can do is perform this script. I may not, or listen to this script. I may not be able to, write the greatest thing down, but I can definitely verbalize and dictate something that's even greater. So it actually, rather than seeing it as restricting you, opening up your creativity. No, I love that. So Kara, you mentioned earlier, sort of, when you've done something, especially in TV and film, you have an element, sometimes you wanted to do it again, or you sort of dwell on it. And then you started to talk a bit about how you've just got to remember that not many people actually care as much as you do. And sometimes I think as an actor, it can be quite a lonely place, because you are learning lines on your own. You're putting yourself out there on your own. And yes, you've got a team around you, but there's a lot of time for an actor to reflect, especially in between jobs. So what do you do as an actor to take care of your mental health and your well-being?
I think this is the downside of the scales of it. There is a lot of downtime, and sometimes you lose the will. And I don't think, even for people who have a great career start, ultimately there'll always be that lull. So it can be harder if you've had a really great break at the beginning, and then suddenly you're thinking, this isn't how it works. Some people are fortunate enough to just go from job to job to job, but there will always be that sort of downside, and wondering, you're not in control. You're always putting yourself out there in the audition, and you're praying you get it, and then you get the one you didn't want to get, and or you don't get anything for a couple of years, and it can be so demoralizing. But I think you have to decide whether it means enough to you, and if you have to deal with that being part of it. There's not really a way out. And as much as you can pretend that, I do a little bit of painting to make me feel better, I mean, you do have to find ways of focusing on something else, but it's really hard, because we're all trying to earn a living, and it's sort of, it does make me laugh when people say, well, I just wait for the perfect job. Well, that's all very well if you're in the position to do that, and won't we all love to do that? But to be an actor nowadays, it's tough, and the money isn't always great, and you have this real pull between doing a job for the money that isn't very sort of creatively enjoyable, or doing something with no money that's really going to be exciting. And there's this sort of real, and especially for myself, who went into something I suppose quite commercial early on, it's a real tug of war all the time. And I guess I've just tried to keep positive and focused, and practice makes perfect.
And are there specific things you do? So for example, if I'm feeling a bit down or low, or I might, I found exercise really helped me. But there's other things, meditation. Are there any specific things you do to sort of calm your mind? And because mental health is something that thankfully is now really being more understood and promoted. And I think actors, especially, it's always assumed, they're actors, they're famous, or they're doing well, and they don't have the same trials and tribulations that we might have that don't work in that industry. So is there any little things that you do, as well as sort of being put in a positive mind frame? Do you do anything in particular?
Well, I think exercise has always been the thing for me that's actually more important mentally than it is even physically.
Right.
And when I have a moment like we all do, where you get out of the routine of it, I really feel it in my kind of mental positivity and vibe. And
Yeah.
so I quickly just realized, come on, get back to it. And as soon as you do, and it's also having a structure, it's so important, because we as actors don't have that timetable and structure. Really important to make your own one up, so that every Monday you're doing this and every Tuesday you're doing this. And that all really helps. And it kind of, the busier you are in a physical way, the kind of more you get done. And you know, talking to people and finding outlets of creativity in other ways. And it's just, and it's also down to the person themselves. You're either a really glass half full and you just keep pushing, and other people just find it hard to self-motivate, and I can be that person. And so, but I'm so lucky that my family notice when I'm getting a bit, and they come on, you know.
Well,
And
talking,
so
talking of family, you've got an 18-month-year-old as well. How are you finding that balance of sort of being an actor who, you know, might need to be on stage every night, or you know, start really early for a call for a shoot on a TV program? How are you balancing having a baby as well?
yeah, well, it was a shock at first. And I just thought, I guess I went into being a parent thinking, oh, this will be interesting. I always wanted a family, but I didn't really like everything in life. Nothing's ever organized or planned. It's all a bit, we'll see what happens. And we wanted a family, but it all happened quite quickly. And then I've just realized there's no good perfect time for things. You just make it work, and it's just so much fun. I love it, because in a way you're so switched on all the time, you can't switch off, that there's never a dull moment. And it just and then I actually did a play when Frey was around 8 months, which was a little bit soon maybe, but
how did you find that?
well, it was crazy, but just the sleep deprivation. Then you're like, oh my goodness, I actually have
You're on
to.
stage like that.
Yeah, there's no cement that can possibly work here. I was so tired, but you just, and then they smile in the morning, and you knack, but all is forgiven, and I love it. So I think the more the merrier. And
aren't you working on something now that's sort of slightly creative, but was inspired by Frey, by having a child? You set up your own business, or tell us about that. Tell us about that.
Well, I think through doing this for so many years, I've always wanted something, maybe to have a business that I'm a little more in control of. So in the down times, there's something to work on. And so my partner and I, Marius, have developed an app called Tell. And because he is Norwegian, as you know, he half of his family are overseas. So when we had Frey 18 months ago, we started to think about how to keep the family connected. And I said, we must get your grandfather to record a Norwegian fairy tale for Frey, so he has it there to keep. And then that kind of spurred on a chat, and we came up with Tell, which is an app where you share stories. So a grandparent can send their grandchild a story, and then they can request the next one they want to hear back, and they can read personal stories that they've made up, or personal memories. And it's kind of like a memory story box to keep for a family circle. And
it's really lovely. So that's really so your auntie, uncle, granddad, mum, dad, so for example, if they're in the military and they're away, or if they're just working away quite a bit, they can record a story for their child to listen to, or grandchild to listen to. That's lovely.
The idea is that the bedtime story moment is possible no matter where you are in the world. And we found some amazing illustrators, but you can equally turn off the illustrations and just, they can drift off listening to grandma or dad or whatever telling them a bedtime story.
Could you read me a story that I could?
Absolutely. I have got a few ready to send over.
No one wants to listen to them.
I know you'll drift off happily to my voice.
3 Little Pigs.
Yeah. Tonight's going to be such fun.
So, Kara, it's been brilliant talking to you. I would just want to ask, if anyone watching this now, if you could give them sort of top tips, as it were, it can be 1 top tip, 2 top tips, 5 top tips. Top tip for anybody thinking about or who's just starting out in the industry, watching the online theatre school, watching you, what could you offer as a sort of a nugget of a gem of Kara Tointon magic?
Well, this is very good.
And don't say listen to your app, tell.
Damn it. I guess my nugget of advice would be, so I suppose you've heard this many times, but don't try and be someone else, because you're only going to be your best if you be you. And it's such a cliche thing to say, but there's so many people pretending to be other people, and it only really fits like a glove when you be you. And just stay strong and positive. And once you have a vision, just work. You can never have any regrets if you work your butt off and do your best. There's a few bits of advice in there.
That was more than one nugget, but it was all great nuggets. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us online theatre school. Do join us again soon, and good luck with the app. I'll download it myself.
You better.
I haven't got anyone to make stories for at the moment, but
don't worry, we'll create a little circle between us.
All right, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, lovely.
Bye.
Bye.
Please do subscribe. The Online Theatre School has lots of lessons coming your way, as well as interviews with people from film, theatre and television. See you soon.